I will be honest with you. When the team sheet dropped on Tuesday evening and I saw the absences again, Odegaard, Timber, Marino, I sat back and thought, right, this could get complicated. And I think a lot of you watching last night felt exactly the same thing. But then the match started and something felt different almost immediately. I want to show you exactly what that was and why it changes how we should think about this Arsenal squad going forward. Everyone is talking about Eberechi Eze's goal, and look, I get it, I really do. It was an outstanding strike. The swivel, the technique, the composure in a Champions League knockout match, all of that deserves every frame of attention it is getting. But here is what I want to say right at the top of this video. That goal is not the real story from last night, not even close. And by the end of this video, I'm going to show you the detail that almost nobody is discussing, and one that I think matters far more for Arsenal's season than anything that ended up on the highlight reel. Because while everyone is replaying that finish on loop, something much bigger happened at the Emirates Stadium on Tuesday evening, something that I think has genuinely shifted how we need to think about this Arsenal squad. And if you stay with me through this analysis, I am going to show you exactly what I mean. Arsenal beat Bayer Leverkusen 2-0, 3-1 on aggregate into the Champions League quarterfinals. And they did it without Martin Odegaard, without Jurrien Timber, without Mikel Merino. Three significant players all absent in a knockout European tie against the reigning Europa League holders. And the performance was not desperate, it was not chaotic, it was not backs against the wall Arsenal grinding out a result on sheer willpower. It was controlled, it was structured, it was professional. This is where things changed for me, not just as an analyst, but as someone who has watched this club through a lot of painful European nights. Because that word, professional, is not one we have always been able to use about Arsenal in knockout football. Last night, we absolutely can. So the question I want to explore in this video, and I think it is a genuinely important one, is this Arsenal squad now bigger than any individual within it, including their own captain? Stay with me, because the answer involves a tactical detail from last night that I have not seen anyone properly explain yet. Let us find out. Before we get into the analysis, let me make sure everyone is on the same page with the full context here, because I think the weight of this result genuinely gets lost if you only look at the final scoreline. The first leg at the Bay Arena 10 days ago was uncomfortable. Leverkusen scored first through Robert Andrich, a header from a Grimaldo corner in the second half. Arsenal needed a late Havertz penalty in the 89th minute just to get level at 1-1. That is the reality of where this tie stood going into Tuesday night. Arsenal were not cruising, but they were level. They had been second best for large portions of that first leg, and they were heading back to London knowing they still had a job to do. Add to that the injury situation. Odegaard has been missing since the North London derby with a knee problem. Timber picked up a knock against Everton at the weekend. Marino has been sidelined long-term. Three players who have been central to how this team functions, all unavailable for a high-stakes European knockout night. And their opponents were not a routine team to face. Bayer Leverkusen. Kasper Uhlmann's side had drawn 1-1 with Bayern Munich the weekend before this match. They had qualified through the Champions League playoff round. And their 19-year-old forward Christian Kofan was genuinely dangerous across both legs. Physically direct, hard to contain, a real problem for any center-back pairing. This detail matters more than people realize. When you stack up everything Arsenal were dealing with going into this match, the result of the first leg, the injury list, the quality of the opponent, this was a genuine examination of this squad's character and depth, not just their talent. And there is one more piece of context I want to plant here, something we will come back to later in this video, because it reframes the entire performance in a way that the scoreline simply does not tell you. So when you put all of that together, and then you watch what actually unfolded at the Emirates, you start to understand why I think something bigger than a 2-0 scoreline happened last night. Right. So here's the central question I want to put at the heart of this entire video. Did Arteta accidentally discover a better version of his own system last night, or has he been building toward this all along? Now, I know that sounds like a big statement. Stay with me, because the answer is in a decision Arteta made between the two legs, and when I show it to you, I think it will completely change how you watched last night's game. Because Eberechi Eze is not Martin Odegaard, let me be absolutely clear about that, because this distinction matters enormously. They are different players in almost every measurable way. Odegaard is a deep creator, a connector, a player who orchestrates from between the lines with short combinations and quick switches. Eze is more vertical, more direct, more of a threat in transition, and he carries a genuine shooting threat from range that Odegaard simply does not replicate in the same way. Yet, and this is the part worth thinking about carefully, The team functioned better in the second leg with Easy in the number 10 than it did in the first leg without a defined number 10 at all. Now here is my honest admission. I was not certain Easy in that role would work at this level of European football. I thought we might see flashes of quality surrounded by structural uncertainty. What we actually got was a performance that functioned as a coherent system from start to finish, and that surprised me in the best possible way. It raises a question that I think is going to define the end of this season in ways people are not fully discussing yet. When Odegaard comes back fit, and reports suggest he is targeting the Carabao Cup final on Sunday, what exactly does he return to? Is the number 10 position still his by default, or has Arteta found a different solution that is working well enough to genuinely complicate that decision? I want to come back to that later, because I think the answer is more complicated than most people are admitting right now. But first, I need to show you the tactical foundation of why last night worked, because without this, none of the rest of it makes sense. Let me start with the formation shift, because this is the foundation of everything that happened on Tuesday night. In the first leg at Leverkusen, Arteta set up in a 4-3-3. 3 midfielders, no defined number 10, it worked defensively, the structure held, the pressing was organized. But creatively, particularly in the final third, Arsenal were flat. They lacked the player who normally connects midfield to attack in tight spaces. That is Odegaard's specific function, and without him in a system that did not account for his absence, the first leg felt labored going forward. Every Arsenal fan watching that first leg felt it. That sense of something missing in the middle third, that slight disconnection between the midfield and the attack. I felt it too. Arteta saw that clearly. He diagnosed the problem, and for the second leg, he changed it. But here is what I want you to pay attention to, because the change he made did not just affect one player. It affected 2. And the second one is the part most analysts have skipped over entirely. He moved to a 4-2-3-1. Rice and Zubimendi in a double pivot behind Easy. Saka right, Trossard left, Gyökeres up top. Now on the surface, this might look like a minor tactical tweak. One midfielder coming out, one attacking midfielder coming in. Simple enough. But here is where I want you to think a little deeper, because the implications of that change for 2 specific players were far more significant than they might appear. The first player it changed was Zubimendi. In a 3-man midfield, Zubimendi has to cover a lot of ground. He carries progressive responsibility, manages transitions across a wide area, and has to contribute in both directions with regularity. It is a demanding role, and if we are being honest, his performances in that 3-man setup this season have been inconsistent. Good in patches, but not always dominating matches. In the double pivot, his job is narrower and more controlled. Screen, recycle, cover Rice's forward runs. That is a role that suits his natural profile far better, and his improved display last night reflects that directly. He got around the pitch, his passing was more incisive, and he looked more assured. The system gave him clarity. The second player the change transformed was Easy. And this is the really important one. This is the part most viewers missed entirely. And honestly, when I mapped this out after the match, it changed my view of the whole performance. In a 3-man midfield, a number 8 is expected to press backwards, track runners, contribute defensively as much as going forward. That is not Easy's strongest suit. He is at his absolute best when he is facing forward, receiving in tight spaces between the lines, and making decisions in the final third with time on the ball. The number 10 position gave him exactly that environment. He was not asked to press backwards for 90 minutes. He was given a defined zone between Leverkusen's midfield and their defensive line and told to operate there freely. And when you watch the goal back through that specific lens, everything makes complete sense. The space is already there before the ball arrives. Trossard finds him. Eze does the rest. This is a coaching decision as much as it is an individual performance. That needs to be said out loud. But here's what I want you to hold on to, because we are about to go deeper. The formation change was just the first layer. There is a second tactical detail from last night that I think is far more revealing, and it involves a statistic from the match that genuinely stopped me when I saw it. Now, here is where I want to show you something that I think got almost completely missed in the reaction to last night's game. Are you ready for this? Bayer Leverkusen had 58.5% of the possession at the Emirates Stadium last night. 58.5%. The away side had more of the ball than Arsenal at the Emirates in a knockout European tie. This is where my view of the performance completely shifted. Because when I saw that possession stat come up during the match, my first instinct was concern. Then I saw the next number, and it reframed everything I had just watched. And Arsenal had 12 shots on target. Leverkusen had 2. When you put those two statistics together, something very important reveals itself about how Arteta set this game up. This was not an Arsenal possession performance. Arsenal were not trying to dominate the ball. They were deliberately conceding possession in certain phases, inviting Leverkusen into non-threatening areas of the pitch, and then pressing aggressively when the right moments to do so arrived. This is what I would describe as a danger monopoly performance. You do not need the ball constantly. You need to make sure that when the decisive moments come, you are the team that takes them. Arsenal had 12 shots on target. 2 went in. Leverkusen had 2. None went in. That is the real scoreline of last night's match. Now let me connect this to a specific tactical detail that I think changed the game, and one that very few people were talking about on the highlights. Something important happened on Arsenal's left side throughout this match. We will get to exactly what that was in a moment. Look at Arsenal's left side across the 90 minutes. See Leandro Trossard on the left wing, Piero Hincapié at left back. This combination created a recurring overload on that side that caused Leverkusen genuine, persistent problems. Here is how it worked. Trossard is not a wide winger in the traditional sense. He cuts inside constantly. That is his natural movement. When he moves infield, he creates space in the left channel behind him, and Hincapié, who is an attacking fullback with real quality going forward, exploits that space by pushing up. Leverkusen's right-sided structure was repeatedly caught in an impossible situation. Do you track Trossard inside and leave Hincapié in space, or do you stay wide for Hincapié and allow Trossard to operate freely between the lines? They could not do both, and the consequence of that dilemma is Easy's goal. Trossard pulls infield, the channel opens. The pass finds Easy in the exact space the overload created, and then there is nothing anyone can do about the finish. This detail matters more than people realize. This was a designed attacking mechanism, prepared in the week between the two legs, executed precisely, and then there is the Rice goal dimension, which deserves its own moment, and which carries an implication for how teams will need to approach Arsenal going forward that I do not think has been properly discussed yet. Rice drives forward in the 63rd minute and hits a low-driven finish into the corner from outside the penalty area. Brilliant goal, but beyond the quality of the strike, think about what it signals to every team that faces Arsenal from now on. If you sit in a low defensive block and concede possession, hoping to frustrate Arsenal into imprecision, Rice will carry the ball forward and punish you from range. He did it in a Champions League knockout match. He put the tie to bed with it. That is not a theoretical threat anymore. It is a documented reality. For years, the criticism of Arsenal under Arteta was about breaking down deep defensive structures. Last night offered 2 completely different answers to that problem in the same game. And I think every Arsenal supporter watching at the Emirates or watching at home felt the significance of that second goal in real time. But here is where everything shifts. Because there is a moment from last night that has nothing to do with either of those goals, and it may have been the most important moment of the entire match. Most people have already forgotten about it. I want to stop here for a second because I need to talk about a moment from last night that I genuinely think is in danger of being completely forgotten. David Raya made a save from Kofane late in the second half. Routine, right? Game already under control. Clean sheet intact. You have probably moved past it already. This is the part most viewers will not think about again, but they should, honestly. When I went back and watched it in context, it stopped me completely. Think carefully about what the context actually is at that point in the match. It is around the 75th minute. Arsenal lead 2-0. Leverkusen are pushing for a way back. Kofane gets into a shooting position and forces a genuine top-quality save from the goalkeeper. If that goes in, it is 2-1. Last 15 minutes of a knockout European tie. Arsenal have to defend a 1-goal aggregate lead. The Emirates gets anxious. Momentum starts shifting toward the visitors. Suddenly, everything that felt controlled and professional about the performance looks very different. That save does not just protect the clean sheet, or it seals the emotional stability of the entire match. And it is a reminder, a very timely one, that David Raya has been the quiet foundation underneath this entire European run. Arteta said after the match that Raya is exactly why he is here. That he is absolutely amazing. And when you sit with that save and understand its full context, He is absolutely right. The goalkeeping position at Arsenal was uncertain for years. It is not uncertain anymore. And now, with that full picture in mind, this is where I want to give you my honest analytical position on what this result actually means for the season, because I think it goes further than most people are currently prepared to say, right? So here is my honest analytical position on what this result actually means. Arteta has answered the most important structural question about this Arsenal squad. The system is now bigger than its best player. Let me give you 3 clear reasons why I am confident enough to state that directly. First, the formation flexibility between the 2 legs. Arteta watched the first leg, diagnosed the creative problem caused by the absence of a defined number 10, and constructed a structural solution within 10 days. That is not a reactive panic. That is elite diagnostic coaching. Second, the collective goal threat from outside the box. Both goals last night came from distance. 2 different players, different moments, different mechanisms. Arsenal are not solely reliant on intricate combination play or any single creative source. The goal-scoring responsibility is being distributed across the squad in a way that makes them genuinely difficult to stop. Third, the defensive organization without 3 key figures. Across the entire Champions League knockout stage so far, Arsenal have conceded 3 goals, 3, without their captain for weeks, without Timber in the second leg, without Merino for an extended period. That level of collective defensive organization is not something you stumble into. Now, and this is important, I want to give you the other side of this, because this analysis means nothing if it only goes in one direction. The creative dependence on one player at a time remains a genuine structural fragility. It was Odegaard. Now it is Easy. If Easy had come off injured in the first 20 minutes on Tuesday night, who plays the number 10? Who creates between the lines? Who connects midfield to attack in tight spaces under European pressure? The honest answer is that there is no ready-made like-for-like cover for an informed number 10 in this squad. And that is the one area where Arteta's depth has a visible gap that cannot be papered over with quality elsewhere. That does not diminish the achievement of last night, but every Arsenal supporter should hold that thought somewhere in the back of their mind as the weeks ahead unfold, because it becomes relevant very quickly given what this team is trying to do. And that brings us to the part of this video I think matters most. Because what we have just discussed is all about last night. What I want to talk about now is what last night actually changes across 4 separate competitions, each with its own set of implications, and one of them involves a storyline in the quarterfinal that I do not think the media will cover in the right way at all. Which brings me to the bigger picture, and I think this is really where last night's result needs to be properly understood. Arsenal sit 9 points clear at the top of the Premier League. They are in the Champions League quarterfinals where they will face Sporting CP. They have the Carabao Cup final at Wembley this Sunday against Manchester City, and they are in the FA Cup quarterfinal against Southampton at the start of April. 4 competitions, you all still alive. I know that list makes for uncomfortable reading for some Arsenal supporters because we have been here before, or close to here, and felt it slip. But this squad feels different, and last night is part of why. Now let me break down what Tuesday night's result changes for each of those competitions, because I think each one carries a different implication. And the one I want you to pay closest attention to is the Champions League quarterfinal, because there is a detail about that tie that the media will miss entirely in favor of the obvious narrative. We will get to that in a moment. Starting with Sunday, the Carabao Cup final is 5 days away. Reports suggest Odegaard is targeting a return to fitness for Wembley and that it should be okay. I want to be careful here. That is developing information, not confirmed, but if he is available, Arteta faces a genuinely fascinating selection question. Does he start his returning captain in a cup final, his first match back from injury, under massive pressure, at Wembley? Or does he continue with the 4-2-3-1 that produced a commanding European performance and start Easy as the number 10? There is no obviously right answer to that. And that alone tells you something about the position of strength Arteta is operating from. There is one more variable on Sunday worth mentioning. Reports are suggesting Pep Guardiola may be serving a touchline ban at Wembley. I want to treat that carefully. It has not been fully confirmed, but if true, it is not a trivial detail. In a cup final, the manager's ability to make real-time decisions from the touchline, substitution timing, pressing triggers, tactical adjustments at key moments genuinely matters. Operating from the stands removes something from any manager. If confirmed, that is a context Arsenal should be aware of. Now, the Champions League quarterfinal, and here is the detail I promised you. the one the media will not cover properly. The obvious narrative is Victor Gyökeres returning to face his former club. That story writes itself, and the media will run with it all the way to the final whistle of the second leg. But analytically, what actually matters is something almost the opposite of what that narrative suggests. Sporting know Gyökeres. They know his movement patterns, his preferred positions, how he links play, where he wants the ball served to him. Counterintelligence in football works both ways. That familiarity is something Sporting's coaching staff will use. Arteta will need to think carefully about how much of Arsenal's attacking structure is built around Gyökeres' tendencies that Sporting have already catalogued in detail. This detail matters more than the emotional narrative will allow most people to focus on. On the Premier League, 9 points clear sounds comfortable. It is a platform, not a guarantee. City have a game in hand. The congestion across April and May is the true challenge. Not any individual match, but the cumulative physical and mental cost of competing seriously across 4 competitions simultaneously. And finally, because I think it genuinely deserves to be said clearly, the Hincapi question. Something important is developing here, and I think it will have major implications when the summer window opens. Over 2 legs against his parent club, Piero Hincapié was one of Arsenal's most consistently effective performers, strong defensively, genuinely contributing offensively, involved in the mechanisms that led to goals. Every match he plays in an Arsenal shirt, he is building an argument for a permanent transfer in the summer. Arsenal have some leverage in that negotiation, but his performances are making the price harder to push down. This summer decision is coming. And these 2 legs against Leverkusen are part of the evidence file on both sides of that table. So what happens next? The immediate answer has to be Sunday. Before Sporting. Before Southampton. Before the league, it is Sunday. The Carabao Cup final is Arsenal's earliest opportunity to win silverware this season, and winning something, even a cup final, even what some might call a smaller trophy, it changes the psychology of a dressing room chasing multiple trophies simultaneously. It confirms the belief that the squad can handle the biggest moments when they arrive. It removes any lingering uncertainty about performing under genuine pressure on the biggest domestic stage. And if you have followed this club long enough, and I suspect many of you watching this have, you know exactly how much a moment like that can shift the belief inside a dressing room. We will come back to the Wembley preview fully before Sunday. But I want to plant one thought here that I think is worth sitting with. Arteta knows this environment. His record at Wembley as both a player and a manager remains unbeaten. That is not irrelevant context. Coaches who have won there understand the environment, the atmosphere, what the occasion demands from players. The confidence in the building around Sunday will be high. After Sunday, the focus shifts to the FA Cup quarter-final against Southampton on April the 4th, then the Champions League quarter-final first leg at Sporting on April 7th or 8th. That 3-week stretch in early April is where the season will be defined. 3 competitions, rapid succession, each one carrying direct elimination stakes. This is where squad depth, injury management, and Arteta's rotation decisions face their most difficult test. And sitting underneath all of it, every single week, is the Premier League title race. The league is in Arsenal's hands right now. It stays in their hands only if the concentration holds through a schedule that will demand everything from everyone in this squad. But here is where I want to leave you. Because I think this is the thought that matters most of all when you consider everything we have discussed today. The mainstream reaction to Tuesday night will focus on Easy's goal. And as I said at the beginning, it fully deserves that attention. It was magnificent, a Champions League moment. He should be proud of it. But the more important story from last night is quieter, less spectacular, easier to miss. Arteta watched his team struggle creatively in the first leg without a defined playmaker. He spent 10 days identifying the problem, constructing a structural solution, and preparing his squad to execute it. He changed the shape, he changed the role allocation, he gave Ease the environment to be decisive, and then the team went out and delivered a performance that was controlled, disciplined, and ruthlessly effective without 3 of their most important players ways against a European caliber side. In a knockout tie where anything less than full professionalism would have cost them, that adaptability, quiet, disciplined, almost unnoticed beneath the highlight reel, is what separates genuinely elite squads from very good teams. Because Leverkusen came to the Emirates with a specific plan, they had done their analysis, they had prepared for Arsenal's patterns, and Arsenal changed the pattern. That is the detail that matters most when you look ahead to everything that is coming. Manchester City on Sunday, Sporting in April, the league run-in, the FA Cup, whatever comes after that. Every opponent Arsenal face over the next 8 weeks will have done their preparation. They will have studied the footage. They will have a plan to stop them. The question is never whether your opponent has a plan. The question is whether your team has the intelligence and the flexibility to make their plan irrelevant. Last night, against a European caliber side under real pressure, without their captain, Arsenal gave a very clear answer to that question. And for the first time in a long time, the conversation around this club is not about whether Arsenal can win something. The conversation now is whether they have the depth, the discipline, and the tactical intelligence to manage winning everything at once. That is a completely different conversation. And this team, quietly, professionally, without drama, has earned the right to have it. Now I want to hear from you. Because there are 2 questions coming out of last night that I genuinely do not think have a clean answer yet. And I am curious where you land on them. When Odegaard is fit, does he go straight back into the starting 11? Or has Easy done enough to make that decision genuinely complicated? And second, do you believe this Arsenal squad can go all the way in the Champions League this season? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. I will be back before Sunday with my full breakdown of the Carabao Cup final against City at Wembley. What Arteta sets up, what Guardiola's situation means, and what winning it would actually signal about this squad's ambitions. Until then, stay analytical, and I will see you in the next one.